Alright, man, Deftones tier list. I have no notes, so let's just go straight into it. Starting us off at the bottom of D tier with Gore. This is a very standard Deftones album, man. It's basically just Chino moaning for the most part with a spacey riff in the background. Speaking of Chino, some of his vocals on here are not good at all and are really whiny. For the most part, though, they're just standard for him. There are some songs on here that I like, but for the most part, this record's just kind of mid. Pretty forgettable, pretty boring, nothing special for the band. It's whatever, man. It's like a light 4. Meh. Above that, though, we have Self-Titled, which is basically the band's more like metal sounding record. It's very stripped down here, but because of that, I feel like it doesn't have a lot of personality. This is insanely standard and bare bones. There are really no highlights, but there aren't any like massive lowlights either. It's just kind of on and then it's over. It's pretty consistently like, okay, okay, okay. There's no real songs that pop on here. And because of that, I think it's insanely forgettable and pretty boring. This record's just kind of okay. It's like a light 5 for me. Now this one's a hot take, man. I think this one's overrated, but let's just get it over with. At the bottom of C tier, I have Saturday Night Wrist. This kind of feels like a hazier version of Around the Fur, with just this really like reverby production, with Chino going more into the moaning into the mic with reverb bag. It's also really inconsistent, to be honest with you. You'll get high highs like the opener, Cherry Waves, and the closer, but then you'll also get songs on here like Pink Cellophane. What Even Is That Song? There's also tracks on here like, I'm pretty sure Rats, 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 that's a song I think, that just kind of exist, like they're just kind of there to pad out the runtime. Not everything on here is memorable, it all just kind of flows into one another, and it just doesn't really leave a lasting impact on me. Maybe I need to smoke some weed and then get a goth girlfriend and listen to this album, and maybe I'll enjoy it. I don't know. Something about this album, it's too horned up for me, dude. I'm sorry. It's just way too like, oh, hazy, ooh, sensual. It's going for too much, man. And it's just kind of a mess to me. It's still good though, still has some high highs, but it also has the band's worst song. It's like a light 7 for me, nowhere near their best. It's still quality though. Above that though, going in B tier, we have Diamond Eyes. This is just a great Deftones album. A lot of the songs on here just go really hard. The hooks on here are really good too, from what I remember. Chino's just singing really good on here. I will say though, it does start a little weak, but it really does start to pick up in the middle part and completely explodes near the end. It's still one of the lesser Deftones albums to me. It's pretty great though, actually. It's like a decent 8. I like it. Above Diamond Eyes though, we have Adrenaline. And boy, I love this record, man. This is a super raw and super aggressive sounding album. The riffs on here are just super stripped down and super crunchy. And Chino's giving one of his most aggressive vocal performances on here. This is the Deftones before they got all hazy and like moany, Super bare bones, very aggressive album that I really enjoy. I will say though, it does get a little samey sounding, but I think it flies by pretty fast, so I'll give it that. I'm feeling like a decent to strong 8. It's pretty great, man. I'll actually put this one under Adrenaline, that being Ohms, their most recent record. This one is so underrated. The first half is insanely consistent, love those songs, and while I will say that the back end is a little inconsistent with some really weak tracks that have some choruses, it's still a pretty fire album regardless. It does sound a little too clean, kind of like Gore, but I feel like they really do handle this sound pretty well. It's basically just Gore, but good. Yeah, I like this one. It's like a decent to strong 8 for me. Going into A tier though, we have Around the Fur. This one kind of starts weak, to be honest with you. The songs just kind of sound like they're missing something, like they're almost like too hard, like they're going too crazy and it's kind of hard to enjoy. The second track specifically, I feel like there's too much going on there. And I feel like this record kind of stays in that style with that very loud and aggressive sound. But I feel like by the end, you're kind of engulfed in it, like you got to get used to it. If you're listening to this while kind of chilling out, it's going to be whiplash, man. I feel like if you go into this record very aggressive, very just like high energy, you really enjoy it. But if you're not matching up with the energy on the record, you're just not going to enjoy it at all. I feel like that's kind of how I entered into it. I was just kind of like, I'm ready for some hazed out new metal here. And I end up getting like these really loud and aggressive tracks that I do really like, but are a little overbearing at times. Yeah, this record is really good. It's a little overrated, but I still really enjoy it. This one's like a light 9 for me. It's pretty great, man. Above Around the Fur, though, we have, I'm gonna butcher this so hard, Koi no Yokan? I can't say this for the life of me. Yeah, this is a really great record, man. It feels like a more polished Saturday Night Wrist, where they take that hazy sound, but just really, like, focus on it. It's super cleaned up, the vibes are insane, the riffs are great, Chino's singing is great. Everything just feels very polished on here, and it works really well. There's no misses on here, every song just slaps, and this record as a whole is easily one of their best. I'm feeling like a light to decent 9 on it. It's a pretty great record, man. And then in S tier, what did you expect, man? It's White Pony. God, this record is so good. This kind of reminds me of Paramore's self-titled album, in the sense that it's literally just an hour of the band doing what they're best at. Every song slaps. I love the more chilled out songs on here. They just kind of come out of nowhere, but oof, they just work so well. And it's just insanely fire from front to back. I also love like the heavier tracks on here. Like the opener, or maybe the second track, they're really like aggressive on here. And definitely going that more nu metal sound that I honestly really like. This is easily their best record, by a mile. Yeah, I'm feeling like a light to decent 9 on this one. This one's so good, dude. And there's my Deftones tier list. I know I'm gonna have some fans mad about some of these placements, but overall I think this is a pretty solid list, and I'd like to see yours in the comments, you know? But yeah, I'm glad you made it this far in the video, man, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.